Good morning, Silmar Foursquare Church, TPC Kids. Today's lesson number 3. Today's our third lesson online that God has given us the opportunity to record online. And I wanted to tell you guys, last week we had a issue recording the preschool class, but I'm going to give you a quick summary. So the verse was, keep the Sabbath day holy. And as many of you know, we come to church on Sunday and we worship God because God rested on the seventh day, and that day he dedicated just for us to worship him. And that's what we do when we come to church. We come and worship his name, and we give him the time and the day that he deserves. And obviously we give him every day, but that day he set apart. So that's a short recap of what the lesson was. I'm sorry that we couldn't upload it, but we're gonna go ahead and move forward. And today's class is lesson number 3, and it's called Adam and Eve's Sin. So many of you guys know this story, or maybe you remember about the snake that was in the story, or you remember it was Adam and Eve, a woman and a man, or you remember that at one point they even found themselves in a very sad place because they were no longer with the Lord. They were separated from God. Whatever it may be, today we're going to talk about Adam and Eve's sin. And today's Bible verse, I have a beautiful assistant with me that's going to help me go over that verse with you. And as many of you know from the last YouTube videos that we've done, we challenge you guys to learn and memorize these verses. And I told you in the beginning of the lesson number 1 that if you guys complete all these assignments, so this is the last assignment for this month, if you complete it and you return it to me by the end of Sunday of next week, you will get your gift. So we're going to go ahead and read today's lesson, memory verse. And it said, God did say, you must not eat the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden. And that's in Genesis chapter 3, verse 3. Abby, can you say it to them so they can memorize it?
God did say, you must not eat the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden.
All right.
Genesis 3:3.
Okay, so this is a book that I have for my daughter, and I really love it. It's Baby's First Bible Stories. A friend of mine gave it to her when she was born, and I really enjoy it. This is very good for your kids to learn if you're a parent and you're watching right now, because it gives them a little summary of what the Bible teaches us. And this is the story of Adam and Eve, and I wanted to just bring it out so you guys can picture the Garden of Eden where Adam and Eve lived. This is where they lived. They had animals, they had fruit. I mean, everything was in their disposition. Everything God had provided for them. And before we begin, I'm going to go ahead and start with a prayer. If you don't know how to pray, you can go ahead and follow me. And I encourage you to learn, every day, just pray how you feel you want to, because God listens to us. He's a good Father. And we're going to go ahead. And if you don't know how to pray, you can put your hands like this, just close them out like this and say, Dear God, thank you for another day you've given me, Lord. I pray that you open my heart and my mind to understand what you have in store for me as your child, God. I pray this in your name, Lord. Amen. If you just did that prayer with me, you did an awesome job. And if it was your first time, God bless you. We'll keep learning as we go on. But today's lesson is really nice because it talks about how Adam and Eve sinned. And it all started with one rule. Do you guys know what that rule was? So when we read the verse, which we're going to read again, because we do it over and over so we can memorize. God did say, you must not eat the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden. So there was many trees, okay? But God said, you must not eat from that middle of that tree. And that was the rule. You must not eat from the fruit of that tree. And this is the rule that sometimes, if we translate it today, so if you're with your mom and dad, and this is an example. So your mom says you can eat a cookie from here, or your dad, or your grandma, whoever. They say you can eat a cookie from here, but they say you cannot eat this Reese's minis that are so delicious, but you can eat of these. So you can eat as many as you want from these, but you cannot eat this. And if you end up eating this one, what happens? You just broke the rule that your parents gave to you because you did not eat from here and you decided to eat from the one that they said no. So that's a quick example. And Adam and Eve were in this beautiful garden, and it was called the Garden of Eden. They were in charge of all the plants and all the animals. So can you think of all the plants and animals that you know? Well, they were in charge of that. and they loved God and each other. They were husband and wife. They really loved each other. And God gave them this one rule, and that rule was, you must not eat the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden. Where was the tree?
In the middle of the garden.
In the middle of the garden, right? And they said, you must not eat the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden. That's what God said. God spoke, and that's the rule that God gave them. So they could not eat the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden. And that tree had a name, and that tree was called the knowledge of good and evil. And that's in Genesis chapter 2, verse 17. God said if they did eat the fruit, they would die. Can you imagine doing something like your parents tell you not to do something, and then them saying if you do it, you will die? That's pretty harsh. And God said, one day when Eve was near the tree in the middle of the garden, a serpent started to talk to her. Can you imagine just even an animal talking to you? That's kind of odd, right? Well, a serpent in this time was talking to Eve. And he told her, did God really say you must not eat from the tree that is in the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we can eat the fruit of any of the trees that are in the garden, except the tree that is in the middle of the garden. Mm-hmm. God told us if we did, we would die. So right there, I would say, oh man, I cannot eat it because I don't want to die. And then the serpent lied to her and said, what did he say to her? He said, you won't die. You will learn new things. Eve saw the fruit and it looked good to eat. So you remember when we saw that chocolate? It looks really good to eat, but your parents said not to eat it. But it looks really good and you want to eat it, but you can't. That's why you had these options. And that's what God was telling Eve when he said, do not eat from the tree, the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden. But here comes the serpent, and he deceives her. He lies to her, and he said, he says, you won't die. You will learn new things. And Eve saw the fruit looked good to eat. So she took some of the fruit and ate it. And not only did she eat it, but she also gave it to Adam. So at that time, both of them broke the rule because Adam also knew he was not supposed to eat from that fruit, and he did. All of a sudden, they realized they had no clothes on. Can you imagine realizing you're naked and everybody's seeing you? Well, at that time, it was just them, but it was God that was seeing you, and they realized that they were naked, because before that, they had no knowledge of good and evil, so they didn't know that they were naked to begin with. So all of a sudden, they realized they had no clothes, and so they hid. So they started hiding, and they grabbed twigs, and they started, making clothes together and trying to at least cover themselves. And when God called out to them, he said, where are you? It's like your parents, you had just eaten this chocolate, and you're ashamed, and you go hiding because you don't want them to see, or you try to maybe cover up the bag. And you're hidden, and maybe you're afraid that you're gonna get in trouble, and all of a sudden God calls out to them like a parent would, and he says, where are you? You have eaten from the tree that I forbid you to eat from, didn't you? Eve pointed to the serpent and said, he told me to do it. So can you imagine, even if this is, let's go back to this example. Imagine your brother or your sister. They know that you're not supposed to eat this chocolate because you're only allowed to eat the cookies that your parents gave you. But then your brother's like, come on, let's just open it. And maybe it wasn't even you who opened it. Maybe it was your brother or your sister and it opened it. But the fact that you decided to eat from it, that makes you also break the rule. And that's exactly what happened here with Adam, because Eve did it and she offered it to him. He still broke the rule that God gave him. You must not eat the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden, in Genesis chapter 3:3. So Eve pointed to the serpent and he said, he told me to. Adam pointed to Eve and said, she told me to. And God was angry and made them leave that beautiful garden forever. Can you imagine being in charge of all these animals and plants, and all of a sudden God said, you are no longer allowed to live here because you broke my rule? And that's exactly what happened. And he made the serpent slide around on his belly forever like a snake. So God was sad that Adam and Eve had sinned. And when we sin, something really bad happens. Like anything that we do, if we break rules, things happen, consequences happen. Well, the same thing happened to Adam and Eve. So when we sin causes us to separate ourselves from God. And God didn't want to be separated from them because that's why he created us, so we can be with him. But Adam and Eve had made the choice to sin. God wants us to obey him so we can stay close to him. You can choose to do the right things and make God happy. So you can choose, like the example, you can choose to put this away and say, you know what, I might not be able to eat that, but I can eat this. And God, as you obey God and you follow his word, it can be like this example that maybe later on you're allowed to have something else. And that's what happens when you obey the Lord. God rewards you. And I want to ask you guys a question. Who did Eve listen to? I'm going to give you guys a little few seconds to think about it. Who did Eve listen to? So I'll give you a little hint. It now slides on its belly. Can you remember who it was? It was the serpent. You're right. And the second question I have is, what happened when they ate that fruit? They were separated from God and had to leave the garden. So not only were they separated from God, they also had to leave the place where they lived, and they had everything accessible to them. And the last thing I want to tell you guys, you don't have to answer this, but look at your brothers and sister or also yourself and just ask yourself, do I follow the rules that my parents give me? Some of you guys probably answered no, and some may have said, oh, sometimes. Well, I encourage you guys to obey your parents, because there's rewards when you follow the directions of your parents, because God placed them over your life for a reason. And we're going to go ahead and start with an activity. So if you guys received your package, you guys have a smiley face sign. And this activity calls for a couple things. So we're going to have Abby, our assistant, show you those things. So the first thing we're going to show you is the plate. So we're going to go ahead and show you the plate that we're using. It's preferred to use a paper plate, the round ones, but we didn't have one. So we're going to go ahead and show you how this one looks. So it could be any size. This actually happened to work perfectly with our circles that we're going to put on here. So Abby actually cut this out. So she cut it out, and we ended up with these circles. Okay? So if you guys can't use scissors, it's okay. You can have your mommy or daddy help you at this time. There's no worries for that. And we're going to go ahead and cut these circles out. So we're going to cut these out, and there's a happy face and a sad face. So you can cut that one out. This one? Yeah. And I'll go ahead and get the sticks ready. Okay, the second thing you're going to need besides the plates are the sticks. You can use the little sticks. You can use the big sticks. This is the little one. This is the big one. You can notice the difference. Or you can use, if you don't have sticks, then you can go outside and find like a stick that's thin enough that you can glue and or tape around. The next thing we're going to need, the third thing, is glue. So if you guys have glue, I have it over here. You could also use this glue. And like you've seen in the other videos, you can use the purple glue if you want. That's Sarah's favorite. You can also use that. So if you're there with me, we're going to do the front side. So while she does that, we have a front side and we have a back side. It doesn't really matter which one's front or back, because once you glue it, you can decide which one is the front and the back. But for this example, they say that the paper plate in the front will have the happy face, and the one in the back will be the sad face. Okay, so now we have our circles, and we're gonna go ahead and cut out these. And get your sticks ready, because we're gonna glue these like this. Okay, so if you see this, we're gonna glue them like this. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this ready, and we'll deal with the little ones too, so you can see how it looks too. We'll do different colors. And while she's cutting that out, I'll go ahead and start gluing. You don't need that much glue. This is how much I put. It's not a lot. I'm gonna get ahead and glue that. And that's plenty of glue to glue your other stuff that you're gonna glue on top. This is the happy face, and we're gonna go ahead and glue it. You can put glue on the paper itself or the paper plate. It's up to you. Okay, so this is what you should have. I'm just gonna let it stay on a little bit longer so it can glue. But this is the front part, okay? This is the happy face. And then right now we're gonna do the back side. And we're gonna glue that part. This is the sad face. Can you guys do a sad face for me? Hopefully you don't have a sad face right now. But we're gonna go ahead and glue that. And that's what it should look like. So this is your happy side, and this is your sad side. Oh, I'm sorry. This is your sad side, and this is your happy side. Okay? So the reason why we did this is because Adam and Eve did something wrong, okay? They disobeyed God. We make good and bad choices too. We are going to talk about some decisions. So you show me if it's a bad choice. So go ahead and show them if it's a good choice or not, okay? So is picking up your toys a good thing? So you think it's a smiley face? Okay. What about yelling at your mom or dad? Oh no. I hope you're not yelling at your mommy and daddy. That's a sad face. What about helping others? That's a smiley face, good. What about showing love to your family, like a hug or a kiss? Okay, that's good. What about throwing a fit, a tantrum? No, mommy, I want the chocolate. I want it now. That's a tantrum. That's a sad face. What about not listening? Do you think not listening is a sad face? I think so too. What about obeying your mom and dad? So we talked about today about obeying God, right? So we also obey our parents. That's a smiley face. What about pushing or hurting somebody? That's a sad face. So as time allows, you can think of other things. If you want to keep it on your own and play this with your sister or your brother, that's cool. But that's the reason for our activity for today. And we're going to go over the verse one more time. God did say, you must not eat from the tree. You must not eat the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden. So where was this tree? In the middle of the garden, okay? Where did the Adam and Eve live? In the Garden of Eden. And what were they not allowed to eat? The fruit, okay? We don't know exactly what fruit it was, whether it was an apple, I don't know what other, oranges, whatever it may be. But the point is that God gave them a rule and they broke it. And because they sinned, that's a sad face, they were separated from God and they were no longer able to live in the Garden of Eden. I want to thank you guys for just joining us in today's lesson of Adam and Eve's sin. And next week will be our fourth lesson, which today I will be distributing out all those packages so you guys can follow along with all these activities like we just did today and we've done in the past. And if you guys need any materials, please text me, call me. It's all on the folders that I'm giving you guys so I can help you along these activities, okay? And if you guys go ahead and read the lessons and you want to talk to them with me, I will be more than happy to help you, and so will Abby, because she's here to help me, right? Okay, God bless you guys. Have a wonderful service and have a blessed Sunday. God bless you.